Happy Friday. It's John Lorden with your weekly episode of BrainScratch. Before we get into today's case, I just want to let you guys know about American Crime Fest. This is an event that's going on November 8th, 9th, and 10th in Wildwood, New Jersey. If you live on the East Coast and if you'd like to meet me, I am going to be there. You can learn more at americancrimefest.com. In the podcaster section, they don't have me listed yet. Don't freak out. I'm definitely going to be there. You might see in the schedule, they've got me noted in a couple places. As of right now, I'm going to be working on 3 separate panels. One of them is on the Alyssa Turney case, and her sister Sarah is going to be there. On top of that, I'll be doing, I can't say the name of this person because YouTube will automatically demonetize this video, but it's a case I looked into a long time ago. It takes place at the Cecil Hotel. I don't talk about this case a whole lot, but there's some new information that I learned from an author of a book. We're also trying to get the author to come to the event. I think it's going to be a really good panel one way or the other. Plus, we'll leave a lot of room for Q&A from the audience. And then the third one is going to be a crime after crime panel. Yes, that means Danielle Hallen will also be there with me. We've got a really interesting idea for presenting to the audience kind of the changes that YouTube has gone through in terms of true crime content using our crime after crime formula. So hope you guys will come and check that out. All of it happening at American Crime Fest. You can learn more at americancrimefest.com. So on to today's case. Unfortunately, this young man dies at the age of 18, single gunshot wound in a vacant apartment. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of witnesses, or if there are witnesses, they're not speaking up. There might be reason for that we're going to touch on as we go through all this. Not a ton of details, but a family in distress, and I want to see if there's something that we can do to help them, maybe shake out that one tip that will help this case move forward. Let's go ahead and start at Calab Luckett's obituary and learn a little bit more about this young man. Calab Delmar Deshay Luckett, age 18, made his transition from Earth on Sunday, December 25th, 2016. Yes, you guys heard that right. He actually was shot on Christmas Day. He was born to Stefan Luckett Sr. and Jennifer Schwartz in Evansville, Indiana. Surviving are his parents, one sister, Janique Schwartz, and 6 brothers: Javonte Schwartz, Stefan Luckett Jr., Savon Luckett, Corwin Cundiff, Avery Luckett, and Ryder Esquire. Large family left behind not knowing what happened to their loved one. I also found some mention of him here at gunmemorial.org. I'm not familiar with this website, but it seems to be a catalog of gunshot-related deaths. And there's just a few things here that I wanted to point out to you guys about Calab. Of course, it's saying that we lost him to gun violence on December 25th, 2016. But for personality, it was noted here, he can make anyone laugh or smile. And it looks like that's been upvoted a bunch of times. He attended Harrison High School, and in the comments, some really nice words about him. So kind-hearted. I'll always remember you. Keep watching over us. He had the biggest heart when it came to anyone, always laughing and having a good time. I miss you so much, Bubba. So as you can see, a lot of people upset. And I did find a Facebook page for him. It is largely turned into kind of a place where people are coming and talking about the fact that they miss him so much. Christmas doesn't feel the same without him. During his birthdays, they come here and still wish him happy birthday, even though he's been gone for a few years at this point. And of course, there's artwork like this that's very touching and looking for hashtag justice for Calab. So what can we learn about this? We're going to start at a very interesting source, custominc.com. This is where a fundraiser was essentially being run for the family, and his mother wrote this up, and I just wanted to share with you guys kind of her take on what has happened here. This is Jennifer Schwartz. I am Calab Luckett's mother. Here is Calab Luckett's story. Calab was a beautiful young soul. He brought smiles to everyone. He protected those he loved. He always kept it real and was never fake. My son lost his life on Christmas Day 2016. He was 18 years young. This has been unbearable to deal with. With the kind hearts of those, we were able to raise exactly enough donations to hold a funeral for my baby boy. And I just want to thank everyone that contributed to that. I think it's really amazing when communities rally around families in need like this. And every person that put $1 towards the memorial for Caleb, I appreciate you. I've not been back to work since Christmas. I'm trying daily, every minute, just to keep going. I'm trying to get in with a counselor so I can just breathe. And I just wanted to share that with you guys because it's really a clear indication of the struggle that families have when they're facing this. And I know we've interviewed other family members that have lost loved ones on the channel here before. It never gets easy, and I think there's something that we need to pay respect to the pain that they're going through every chance we can, and that's why I wanted to share what she's putting out here, Jennifer. Unfortunately, I don't know if this fundraiser did great. It looks like they were trying to sell about 100 t-shirts. It didn't really move the meter too far, but I'm thankful that she was very clear about what happened in terms of other people giving them donations for his funeral. Of course, she's talking about the fact that, she's having trouble getting to work. Now she's got the reality of life. She's got bills, responsibility, 6 siblings that Caleb has. There's obviously a lot that goes on, and when you take on something like this, life doesn't stop for that. So a lot of considerations there. Unfortunately, I haven't found a fundraiser that is still open. I did see that there was a GoFundMe run for a little bit. That has also closed. So I haven't found a way to help the family in that way. Otherwise, I would certainly be doing that in this episode. Over at eveningsun.com, let's get to the news sources and see what we can learn about this. Are there any facts that can help us with this case or anything that might jog someone's memory? This was published December 26th, 2016. Authorities are investigating the suspicious death of an 18-year-old whose body was found at an Evansville apartment complex. The man was identified as Calab Luckett, a Newburgh resident, and he was found at a complex on Evansville southeast side. So I pulled up a map just to give you guys kind of an idea of the layout and the distance that we're talking here between where he lived to where he was found. Newburgh is here. You can see it's close to the Ohio River, and about 8 miles west of that is the apartment building where he was found. I haven't found a lot of great detail about why he went to the apartment building. I have a feeling he might have been partying with some friends or something along those lines. Kind of interesting to me that he's found in a vacant apartment. I'm also not clear if the vacant apartment is where the shooting actually happened or if he was taken there after the shooting, something along those lines. Quite honestly, I don't know if we'll have those answers by the end of this video, but of course, as always, I'm totally open to any family members that want to come on the channel. You can email me, john@lordandarts.com, if you have additional details you'd like to get out there, and we'll certainly do that. So let's learn a little bit about the area where this is taking place. Newburgh is a town in Ohio Township, Warwick County, Indiana. The population was 3,325 at the 2010 census, although the town is part of the larger Evansville metro area, which recorded a population of 342,000. It is the easternmost suburb of Evansville, Indiana. For Evansville, there's tons of information about it as well. Just one thing I really want to point out. In 2008, Evansville was voted the best city in the country in which to live, work, and play by the readers of Kiplinger, and in 2009, it came in at the 11th best. I've looked into the backstories of both these towns, and when you get to metro areas, it's always tough because sometimes you have big industry that's driven in there and that works well for a portion of the population. But then you get these other neighborhoods where those industries aren't necessarily catering to those portions. And it seems like, by all accounts that I can find, this seems like a pretty decent place to live, a place where you can get some work and get a job. But as we know, with major metro areas, there's different sections of these areas, and some other areas might be more, I would say, like more economically depressed than others. So it's weird because when I was first reading this story, I felt like, wow, this seems like this might be a bit of a low income area. And maybe that part of the city in particular is, but what I'm reading about the cities in general is They do pretty well economically, but let's continue with more details of the crime here at 14news.com. Evansville police are on the scene of a very serious death investigation on the city's south side. We're told a maintenance man at Woodland Park's apartments found a body inside an apartment Monday morning. They had been doing some work in some of the apartments, which is what led the maintenance man to the apartment. When he got there, he noticed a door had been moved. He pushed open the door and found the body of Calab. So there was one other article. It was a legit news source that said that the apartment was vacant. But even that detail, it's not coming across very strong in all the other news sources I'm reading. So slight chance that it might have not been a vacant apartment, but I do think it was. Once again, the big question for me at this point is, do we know where that's actually where the crime happened? You know, were they able to analyze the scene and say, yes, this is where the gunshot occurred? We're going to have some comments from law enforcement on this, but unfortunately the level of detail is not great. Over at tristatehomepage.com, Nancy Bird opens the wounds from a Christmas Day murder. Her nephew, 18-year-old Calab Luckett, was killed at Woodland Park Apartments on Christmas, and the family is nowhere near closure. Keep in mind this link, and if you look into this case more, use the description box down below, come to the Tri-State homepage link and watch this video. I can tell you it's one of the most heartbreaking videos that I've seen, maybe in any case that I've looked into. Nancy is severely emotionally distraught by the end of this video, and she's been the one kind of appointed to talk to the press because obviously Calab's mother is in even worse shape. It's a really, really tough watch, but I do think, once again, drives home the point of how this affects families. He didn't get his chance in life, and it's terrible. It's not easy to talk about in the past tense either. He had such a beautiful soul, Bird says. Evansville police say the case is cold. Investigators have questioned some as standard protocol. They have no suspects and no leads. No one at Woodland Park is talking either. Woodland Park is the name of the apartments where this went down. Over at wiky.com, just a little more detail. The previous night, officers had received a call about shots fired near the Woodland Park apartments. Sometime between 11 and midnight, they had shots fired run down there. Sergeant Jacob Taylor told our media partner 14 News. They didn't find anything, but that could be related to some of the items we found outside. Now, it's tough because I know this kind of feels like a sentence out of context, but the rest of this article doesn't go into any more context. I'm including it because I'm trying to figure out what the timeline is for the shooting. We know essentially he is found on the morning of the 26th. We know that he is given a ride on Christmas Eve, I believe late at night, to this location. So we've got a pretty big time window. We've got over 24 hours that we're looking at, and trying to drill in some type of timeline on this, I think, is really important, especially if you're asking people to, hey, recall that time that you were there. Well, what time? And we're coming up on 3 years later. So that type of recall is already going to be challenging. If we can kind of ratchet down the time frame and get that tight, it might help with this case. Here we're hearing shots fired in the area between 11 and midnight. Keep that in mind. I don't know if it's the best information, but please keep that in mind. Continuing to another article at 14news.com. Calab Luckett's family says at only 18 years old, Calab already lost friends to senseless violence. Despite that, family members are remembering the good times. He always thought he knew everything. We would try to be doing something and we would get it wrong, said Corwin Cundriff, Calab's brother. He would always come in the room and do it himself, and he'd still get it wrong. Family members say when he wasn't spending time with friends, he was with his family. They say he had 3 nieces and a nephew. He was great with kids and loved his family. My brother was a very kind-hearted, strong individual. We loved him more than anything, said Janiqua Schwartz, Calab's sister. The family had looked forward to celebrating the holiday with Calab. Because of their work schedules, they pushed Christmas back to Wednesday. Now they're planning his funeral. I always get worried when I hear details like that because I worry that members of the family are going to say, why did we cancel Christmas? Or why did we push Christmas off a few days? And if we didn't do that, he would still be with us. And in some way, I'm partly responsible for this. I truly, truly hope that they're not doing that to themselves. There is no way to anticipate that something like this is going to happen. It's a tragic enough story without people beating themselves up about doing things, living their lives, and then, feeling like them living their life has ended someone else's. It's just, I wish that we could go back and fix things like that. I wish we had some kind of time machine where you can undo choices like that, but we don't. And to feel responsible for something you had no foresight into, it's just a really, really tough place. I really hope that the family isn't falling into that. And that's one important thing about his mother's statement is, she's talking about she's trying to get some help. She's recognizing fairly quickly on that she's having trouble processing this on her own. And I just want to put the word out there for anyone else that's dealing with something like this, an unsolved murder or a missing loved one in your family. Please look for that team. You're putting a team together to help you get through this. If that includes a counselor, get a counselor. It's worth it. It's worth anything that you can do to help yourself in going through a time like this. Over at courierpress.com. So the autopsy is done. This is published December 27th, 2016, and it does rule this a homicide. An autopsy confirmed that Calab Luckett died from a single gunshot wound to the head, the Vanderburgh County Coroner's Office announced on Tuesday evening. Before the autopsy, officials had only defined Luckett's death as suspicious. He is the second teen to be fatally shot in a case connected to that specific apartment complex known as Woodland Park in the last 18 months. Deviante Gaines, a 17-year-old who lived in one of the apartment units, was shot once in the stomach in July 2015. His death was originally reported as a self-inflicted wound, but authorities had their suspicions and eventually brought charges in the case against Kavar L. Thomas, now 20, after grand jury hearings in March of this year that were aimed at alleged gang activity. Thomas ended up pleading guilty. He was sentenced to 8.5 years in prison. And in at least one of Luckett's social media posts, it alludes to Gaines with a reference to the Devi gang. Something else to keep in mind, we're going to close the hoop on what is the Devi gang by the end of this video. And I do think it's interesting. Some of the commentary I've seen on this is people wondering, is this gang related or not? To be honest with you guys, I don't know. Some of the pictures I'm seeing, he appears to be holding his hand in kind of like different gang sign fashion, but is that possibly a reference to what is known as the Devi gang, which is related specifically to the shooting of this young man? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know enough about that world to know if that's really what's going on here. We just have to remember this is a man that's 18 years old. He's figuring out himself. He's trying to figure out his life, and all of it is ended before he gets any work done on either of those fronts. It's really tragic. It always hits me when I'm reviewing cases about young people dying. I just think of all the chance and opportunity and things that they could have done for this world all disappearing in the blink of an eye. And then we have something very interesting happen pretty quickly after the information of this murder comes out. A petition is filed at change.org. Shut down Woodland Park. I hereby petition to shut down Woodland Park. This is a petition that's posted by a man named Jeremy Wakefield. He wants them to cease Section 8 eligibility for Woodland Park. This neighborhood fosters drugs, prostitution, and deplorable living conditions. More murders have taken place at Woodland Park than any area of all of Evansville. It's time to retire this place and make it a park. The private owners of this place are cashing in on these people and aren't even doing their part to make sure this environment is safe, secure, and clean. Shut it down now. And he got over 1,000 people to actually agree with him and sign this petition. On top of that, there was some news that came out about this petition as well at Tri-State, a different article at Tri-State homepage. A major Evansville apartment complex is the focus of an online petition to shut it down after the recent case of a teenager found dead. Jeremy Wakefield, a former resident at the complex, says he started it to start a conversation and to start action at improving living conditions. For Wakefield, the memory of recent incidents cloud those that he had growing up at Woodland Park. After this recent death that happened, it really sparked me to do something about it, he said. He says that he really wants to bring attention to the conditions of the park and make the city hold its owners accountable. I know there are good people that live in Woodland Park. I don't want to see anyone displaced. I don't want to see anyone homeless. But what I do want is to see them living in better living conditions. I do want to see better security in the neighborhood. Now, they actually reached out to the mayor, Mayor Winnicky, and he responded to this as well. He said, the landlord theoretically could be cited for activity that occurs in and around the property, and there could be fines associated with that. It's up to the landlord to take the corrective actions to make sure the illegal activity ceases. Pretty interesting. So it's weird because I hear the mayor kind of agreeing that there are at least things they can do. I mean, he's recognizing this is private property, but there are still ways to hold the landlords responsible. Did any of that happen? I don't know. I can't find very good information on that. However, at the time of the writing of this article, they also reached out to the managers at Woodland Park, and of course, they declined to comment. Are things getting any better at Woodland Park Apartments? I just ran a new search here. 1 month ago, we have man shot in Evansville is in critical condition. And this article snippet is saying that it happened Wednesday night at Woodland Park Apartments. Woodland Park apartment fire sends 2 to hospital. That's also in Evansville, so that's definitely the right apartment building. Police looking for suspect after apartment shooting. Once again, that is a month ago. I don't know, guys. Doesn't seem to me that things have gotten much better at the apartments since then. Jumping over to 44news.wevv.com, remembering Caleb Luckett 1 year after Woodland Park murder. Frequently, when I'm researching these cases, these anniversary articles are good for new details coming out. Do we really have that going on in this case? Let's take a look at this one together and find out. As the anniversary of his death approaches, the Evansville Police Department says it has not given up on the investigation. Sergeant Jason Cullum says they have not received any information pertaining to the case since last December. So basically, he's saying they haven't received any information since it happened. Then Sergeant Cullum says, we want his family and his friends and loved ones to understand that this is not a cold case. Now, you guys probably are thinking about, wait, John, didn't you read something to us where someone said this was a cold case? Yeah, they did say it was a cold case earlier. Apparently, now Sergeant Cullum is saying, no, it's not a cold case. This is a case that recently had activity where our detectives were entering supplemental reports. What I gather from that is there was some aspect of this case that it's weird because how can he say that they haven't received any information but they're entering supplemental reports? I would think that the supplemental reports have some type of information that's being attached to the case. So quite honestly, guys, I'm kind of confused here. I'm not sure what they're really trying to say. Caleb's mother has some pretty strong feelings here. The mother of the victim, Jennifer Schwartz, still lacks closure. She says, I don't feel like the leads are being followed right. I feel like it's being investigated right. I don't feel like his timeline was established right. Cullum says, we would like to know what's going on in his life in the days and weeks prior to his death, if he was involved with any types of disputes with individuals, either with a person or through social media. Schwartz says, nobody has come out to talk to me. Like, I might get a message on the phone, but like being told I might retire in 2 years, we probably won't know by then. It's not a very nice way to deal with a mom who just lost her kid. So, I don't know, guys. I find this article really confusing. I feel like it seems like there's kind of double talk going on. We have Sergeant Cullum saying he hasn't received any information since last December, but we've got the mother talking about, I don't think that the leads are being followed up on right. So I don't know if she's hearing about leads that they are getting, but he doesn't want to report. I don't know. And then we have a very big question about the timeline. Like, they're not even establishing the timeline right. In terms of someone going out to talk to her, I struggle with it a little bit. I think it's probably important to the investigation to understand. I mean, Cullum's even asking here, we want to know what was going on in his life in the days and weeks prior to his death. So wouldn't you go and interview the mother, at least to get some more leads for understanding that? I'm kind of surprised that no one has come out to meet her. And then, of course, to hear that, she gets a phone call from a detective saying, I might be retiring soon and it probably won't be solved by then. We've talked about it on the channel before, but I really wish they had some type of officer that is specially trained in family sensitivity to relay messages to these families. I can't even tell you guys of some of the stuff. I've literally heard recordings from people where officers are coming to tell them that their missing person is no longer alive. And the family is asking the officer, do you know about this case? Do you know? And the officer is kind of like, well, I haven't really looked at the file for myself. In one case, I heard the officer actually tell a family, I saw the YouTube video. And I'm pretty sure they're talking about a video just like this. So when it comes to family sensitivity, man, really seems like there's something lacking. And here we just kind of get another example of it. So we touched on, there's definitely some other shootings that are going on in this area. This article at 14news.com points out that there are 12 unsolved murders in Evansville, and the families are asking the community for help. In this list, they do have Calab listed. Even after decades at a standstill, Evansville police say none of these cases have gone cold. Kind of interesting because some of these murders in this list actually date back to 1979. And if you don't consider that a cold case at this point, I need to better understand what the meaning of cold case is. Each passing day without new information is another day families are stuck in limbo without closure. Now, remember that gun memorial site that we started this video with? I noticed something interesting at the bottom, which was a list of other shooting-related deaths that have happened, in particular in Evansville. So I did a quick search on it, and here we have Calab, December 2016. And if we roll up from there, there's 6 more, there's 6 more, there's 7 more. There's literally at least 25 additional shooting-related deaths that have happened. And this is a major metropolitan area, I get it. One of these men, Robert Doerr, is actually a firefighter. So a lot of cases that are going on in this area. Could that be part of the reason why Calab's case hasn't been cracked yet? Are police overworked in this area or something along those lines? I think we always have to consider that when we're talking about police work in general. Continuing at 44news.wevv.com, this is an article from June 4th, 2019, and the title of this article says Cold Case. They're kind of putting it right out there. A Christmas Day murder without any witnesses. More than 2 years later, no one has been arrested in the deadly shooting. The family has heard story after story, information on top of more information. There were so many tips they had to start writing them down. So once again, I just want to point back to that article we just read a few pages ago where we had the police saying they haven't been given any new information basically since the actual shooting happened. Here we have an article where they're noting specifically the family saying they're getting so much information they have to start actually writing it down. So just some inconsistencies going on here. Here it is 3 years later and we still get tips, said Calab's sister, Janiqua Rivera. Sounds like they're still getting info. I don't know why the police made that statement. Janiqua says her husband dropped Calab off at Woodland Park on Christmas Eve. It was the last time the family ever saw or heard from him aside from on social media. He was active on Facebook up until 1:16 on December 25th. His body was found the following morning, that would be the 26th, around 9 o'clock. How can somebody be shot, in the afternoon in an apartment where everyone knows everything that's going on, said Rivera. Supposedly, it was 2:20 on Christmas Day, said her mother Schwartz. And nobody knows anything, said Rivera. It's Christmas Day. Everybody is home. Really interesting. So this looks like it's tightening up the timeline quite a bit. That initial report of the shooting happening between 11 and 12 on Christmas Eve, that gunfire does not seem to be related to this. He's still using Facebook for at least another 12 hours after that, until 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Christmas Day. Evansville police have never confirmed if evidence of a shooting was found at the scene. Such an important question. And I don't know why we don't have detail on that. I'm curious to know if maybe the family knows or not. Looking at a crime like this, you have to wonder, was he shot in that location? Okay, if he wasn't shot in that location, did they canvass the apartments? Did they go door to door looking for possibly the location of where the actual shooting happened? Then we have kind of the early news reports talking about, well, there were shots fired called in the night before, but we're learning here that time frame doesn't work right. So by the time they actually lock in the real time frame, has to be after 1 p.m. They're hearing that it might be around 2:20. I believe there's more shots fired called in around that time, so that's what they're thinking. Are they using the right reports to try to drill in on where to look? If shots fired is called in at 2:20, I want to know where that address is. I want to talk to that person, and I want that person to tell us, what direction did you hear this coming from? And maybe that could at least get them to focus on a specific quadrant of the apartment structure or something like that. So it's weird because we have the family saying they're worried that leads aren't being followed up right. We have information in the media that is extremely confusing about what they're doing with leads, if they're getting the leads at all. And then we get discrepancies like this where it's like, well, the early reports said that the shots were fired the previous night. Now we're hearing they were shot on Christmas Day. Were we looking in the right place at the time? I really don't know. It's almost like he wasn't the victim anymore, said Schwartz. He was a suspect, even though he was dead. Schwartz admits her son wasn't making the best decisions. He made some stupid choices in life, Schwartz said. As time goes on without Caleb, his loved ones are trying to keep his memory alive. His voice is starting to fade to me, said his sister Rivera. I used to call his phone number so I could hear his voicemail over and over. The number is no longer in service, but I used to call him all the time just so I could hear him. Caleb's family is hoping conscience catches up to the person or people responsible. So, another interesting statement from the family here. It seems like they're aware of some stuff he was doing that weren't the best decisions for him. What is that stuff? I don't know. Once again, are we talking gang-related activity? Are we talking drug-related activity? I think it's important to know more of the conditions about why he was going to the apartments. Was he going there to meet specific people? Was he going there because it was a place known for maybe picking up some type of drug, or if it was known for a particular gang hangout, something along those lines? We don't have those details. It seems like his mother has a little bit more sense about what's going on that front, but hasn't come out publicly with it. So the last source, and honestly, I kind of want to thank this person because her article directly got forwarded to me by a caring brain scratcher that thought I should try to raise attention to this case. Phoenix Fire Dean wrote about this on this site. This is the first time I've looked at this site called vocal.media, and it seems to be kind of a blogging platform where people can come and write blogs and get paid for contributing, almost kind of like what YouTube is for me. This is for bloggers, essentially. So do keep that in mind in terms of blogging sources. You know, I always kind of put a little question mark over it. But Phoenix Fire Dean lives in the area, has actually done what I consider a really good job in terms of pulling this story together. And there's a couple of points that she makes in here that I haven't found in other sources, so I just want to share them with you here. And here we have another picture of Caleb. And here's another picture. And this is one of those things, guys, I just don't know enough. Are we talking gang symbols here? Is this something else that I don't know? I don't know. So I just want to show you guys this picture as well. Does that mean anything to you guys? Let's talk about that in the comments down below. Although it was reportedly 2:20 in the afternoon, a fact that was backed up by a shots fired call at the same time and from the same apartment building, not a soul heard or saw a thing. Cameras positioned outside the apartment in the common hallway of the apartment building captured images of someone leaving the apartment around the same time, but as of this writing, we've been unable to obtain the video from those cameras. If this information is accurate, and I think there's a very good chance it's accurate, we're learning a couple of important things. First of all, shots fired called in at 2:20. That seems to line up with the news source where his mother's saying that they think it happened at 2:20. but we're hearing there's cameras. And we're hearing that this is an apartment complex where there's common hallways. So in terms of the big question I have, did it actually happen? Did the shooting happen in that particular apartment? If there's cameras on the common hallways, I would think the answer might be on those cameras. There might be a chance if someone had moved his body, that could have been picked up from the cameras. But if this is accurate, that there are cameras and someone is seen leaving the apartment around the same time of the shooting, where are those images? Why aren't those images making the rounds? Or isn't that actually just being discussed, at least by local media, as a lead that might have been? It might be that investigators found the person that was in the images and have cleared them. I'm just curious why that whole narrative is completely missing. It would be good to release some information like that. You know, the police haven't released a lot of information on this case. So for them to come out and say, hey, we had this one lead, we found this guy on camera, it was around the same time, but we met up with him and we ruled him out because of X, that just might help this perception that they're really not doing a whole lot, and maybe even help the relationship with the family a little bit by acknowledging, hey, we are working on this and here's something that we did. So I'm really curious about this statement. What else did those cameras capture? But more importantly, why aren't we seeing it? If this is a possible suspect, shouldn't those pictures be circulated? And what about that Devi gang that I mentioned before? I think Phoenix is going to give us some more information here. Devi gang was created in 2015 as a memorial support group when 17-year-old Deviante Gaines was killed in the same apartment complex in which Calab was found deceased. And here we actually have a picture of Calab at Deviante's grave. I'm curious to know, did they know each other? I'd really like to just understand the relationship between the two of them a little more. And she makes another interesting point, and I don't know. I've never heard about a gang being created as a memorial support group before, but I can't rule it out. Why not? I mean, if you've got all these kids that are facing these issues on the streets and a bunch of them want to band together so they can actually talk about that, discuss that. I mean, they're losing their friends. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. It's unfortunate that children are forming memorial support, quote, gangs for children who have been a victim of violent crime. And that's something else that I noticed on Calab's Facebook as well. Just so many young people talking about losing him, but also other friends that they've lost along the way. It's really tough, and we could spin into a whole different discussion about these types of murders. But I don't want to take away from what we're focusing on here, and that's really Calab's case. Is there something that we can do to help Calab's case progress and move forward? There is a Facebook group, Justice for Calab Luckett. I'll have links to that in the description box below, as well as contact information. The contact information includes a way that you could actually give in tips anonymously if you need to. I think this is one of those cases where that is super important. I haven't seen anything in terms of a reward on this case. That's something else that I don't know if the family, if you guys are seeing this, maybe it's something that you can consider doing, just opening a GoFundMe and leaving it open-ended and saying, you know, we just want people to be able to contribute to a reward for justice for Calab, something along those lines. This is obviously a criminal act, so the reward is going to have to be something decent to make someone possibly fold on someone else they know. But outside of that, I think the anonymous tip line is helpful. Of course, I'll also have contact information for the police department as well. But this is really about, I think the family has put it out in the media right. This is about someone that needs to have their humanity kind of put in check and hopefully decide that they're going to step forward and help with this case. And I don't think that's necessarily the person that did the shooting. I'm almost certain there's other people that know about it, maybe even people that live in the apartment building. If you're talking about an area where there is a lot of drugs, if it is as bad as that change.org petition is putting out, people might be scared to talk up. It might take a matter of time. It might be that some people have to move out of that community and then let it sit with them for a little bit and get to the point where they feel safe enough to call in something like that. I think there's a lot of limiting factors in terms of this case that are stopping people from coming forward. But someone out there has the information. We all have a heart in our chest, and I'm hoping that that information connects with someone's heart and they do the right thing and pick up that phone. And that's why we're including all the contact information down below. So what do you think, Brain Scratchers? What is going on with this case? It's strange because it's really tough to research cases like this. They seem so simple. There's not a whole lot to talk about in terms of physical evidence. But even for that, we really don't have a lot with this one. I don't even know if that's the right room. We do know single gunshot to the head. We know the area is known for having some trouble, those apartment buildings in particular, possible drug dealing. People have been discussing the possibility of some type of gang activity. The Devi gang thing, I don't think that's the type of gang activity that we're talking about, but maybe you think different, or maybe you know something different about that. So I'm certainly open to hearing your suggestions in the comments down below. And my heart is absolutely broken for this family. All the siblings, a father, a mother, everyone just with no answers at all in terms of what's going on in this case, and kind of a broken relationship going on with the police department. I really hope that everyone can get on the same page and help this case move forward. It is about putting teams together. I don't think any one person can solve this. I don't think the police can solve it on their own. I think they would have already if they could. So this is going to take a collaborative effort. And there's someone else out there that needs to be part of that team. And if you're the person sitting there with that info, I hope you'll do it. I hope you'll step up and do it. Before I end today's video, I have a few new patrons to thank, starting with Mary Baez. Thank you so much, Mary. And Patrick Blasiol. Thank you, Patrick. Had a nice little chat with you on Patreon. If you want to support the channel, you can do so over at www.lordandarts.com. You can join Patreon. You can join or send a payment through PayPal, or you can buy merchandise. All of it helps keep me here doing what I love doing, trying to help these families in need, just like we saw in today's episode. Hope you have a great weekend. I'll see you back here on Monday with a brand new episode of Case Cracked I don't think you guys want to miss on the Lord and Arts channel.